Welcome to the Big Movement Podcast. If you're ready to create results and make huge strides in your business, finances, personal development, and health, then you're in the right place. Pushing past excuses and powering through procrastination can be a challenge alone. Here, you'll get the support, tools, and knowledge you need to get to the level you desire in your business and life. Let's get started with your host, Byron Ingram.
And welcome to another episode of the podcast. And today we have the PollyAnna Brown, who uses her over 20 years experience in the entertainment industry to help businesses and entrepreneurs grow their audience, impact, and income. A nice, interesting combo there. And she's also the founder of Storyteller Marketing and the owner of PK Media, a marketing and PR firm. So we're going to learn how she helps her clients get published and featured in all sorts of publications and generate business using the media. So let's give welcome to PollyAnna. So PollyAnna, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Byron. I am so excited to be here.
Well, I'm glad you're here too, because, some people think you're going to do a podcast on a day there's an eclipse. Is that like some type of omen? Really? I don't know.
I'd say that's pretty damn good luck.
Oh, yeah, exactly. So it's the lucky podcast recording day.
Absolutely. The worlds and the universe literally colliding on a special day. So I think that's pretty cool.
Exactly. And especially when it's a Monday.
Yes.
All right. So tell me, how did you get into this world of PR and marketing? Because not everybody does it traditional route where some people, they go, well, I'm going to go to school specifically for this. Other people, they just kind of landed like, well, this sounds like fun.
I'm kind of a mix. It was funny because I grew up in the entertainment industry as a professional storyteller. I was acting and singing and modeling from a super young age. And when I say young age, I mean 6 months old is when I got in. So I've literally, for as long as I can remember, I've been a professional storyteller. And growing up, I was always in the spotlight. I was the one everyone focused on. And I had a secret love for all things back end. I loved the stories. I loved, creating them and seeing how people reacted and the impact that they had. And so that was really where not only did I thrive, but I felt really compelled to go toward. And so when I decided to leave the performance side of storytelling and go into the writing and more behind the scenes kind of element, I really fell into this PR phase. And what had happened was I started my business originally very, very simply. I was teaching entrepreneurs and business owners how to tell their story in, webinars and on stage and different places like that. Just how could they share their story with their people in a meaningful way that didn't feel contrived and, emotionless. They really wanted to connect. And so that's how I started. And my business just totally grew from there because there was an entire marketing system that I developed using storytelling. And so from that space, I had been getting PR since way back.
Aha.
And I just have a knack for pulling stories out of people because I can see the connections differently than a lot of people because I've been around story for so long. So I can see parallels and strings and puzzle pieces and really put them together in a compelling way because I know how to tell a great story. So when you know how to tell a great story, it's easy to pitch a great story and find those pieces for your people because so many entrepreneurs and business owners think that they're mundane or boring, and they'll tell me about a story that's kind of like an aside, and I'm like, oh, there's your story. That's your press-worthy story. And they go, really?
Right.
And I'm like, yes, that's awesome. And when I can show them how it illustrates not only what they teach, but what they stand for and how it shows up for their people in a powerful way and why it's press-worthy, then things start coming together and they really understand. So that's how I got into it. It was a natural segue from my storytelling and marketing business to really help my clients execute those stories and get them featured on higher level publications or publications where their audience is totally hanging out, they're really active, so that they can generate more clients.
Now that is great because so many people, they don't think they have a story. It's like, my life is boring. I sit here. I do nothing. Yay. But that's not really the case.
Nope. On any given day, we can totally construe ourselves as boring. Yesterday, I didn't get out of bed until like noon because it was Sunday. It was the weekend, and I was like, I'm tired.
Yeah.
And then when I did get up, it was my hubby and I going to the grocery store. Then we cooked dinner. Then I did the dishes. And then we, went for a walk with our fur babies. So seemingly to everyone else, really boring. However, the escapades at the grocery store were amazing.
Interesting.
Right? And just that play that you have back and forth and the relationships that you build, it's really amazing how compelling a simple action can be when you know how to communicate it appropriately.
Oh, yes, exactly. Because we just need to work on our communication skills. And that's what I think people struggle with the most, because it goes into the belief about what we know and what we experience. And some people think, well, who would want to know that? Like, well, a lot of people.
Yes, absolutely. And the thing is you don't often know when you're affecting someone. And this is really huge. One thing that I take all of my clients through is I take them through their target market research and find the holes on where they need to go get answers from their people. Because often target market research isn't done correctly, and that's no one's fault. It's very rarely taught correctly. So if you're not taught how to do it the right way, it can be very confusing, especially because people kind of talk in surface level first, and you kind of got to dig for the real stuff. Same thing with storytelling. Like I said, I see stories everywhere. And with storytelling, people go very surface level because they're afraid of what's going to happen if they share the real details, and really get under the skin. And that's where all the juicy bits are. That's where the compellingness is and the inspiration is. And that's how you shift into a story that is super compelling for your people, because people only buy when they are emotionally moved and inspired and they trust you. And the best way to do that is through knowing your story. And we all have multiple stories, right? One thing that I always talk about is I'm very anti-brand story.
Oh, no.
I know, shocker, right?
Right.
I actually refuse to teach brand story because what ends up happening is business owners and entrepreneurs, they get stuck in this idea that I have to have this one story, this one epic story, and it gets stale so quick. And it doesn't move and shake the way that you do. And it's not going to be right for every audience every moment. And so knowing how to tell your stories and how to find them is really the way for you to connect. And so tying that back to the target market research, what that does is it tells you what your people are struggling with, what they really want, genuinely want, right? Because everyone can say, yeah, I want more money. Yeah, I want more freedom. But what does that mean? What does that look like, right? And getting that picture from your people, because that picture is going to be similar. Like there's so many parallels that are really specific, that are shocking among the people that you serve. And so you want to look at that and say, where do I have experiences that emulate this struggle and also emulate this desire, this achievement that they're, going for? Or if I haven't done that myself, where do I have stories of people I've helped who were in this pain point and then who reached this desire? And that's how you start creating press-worthy stories, because that then becomes emotionally compelling for the audience. And that's what it's all about. So not only does it become press-worthy, it also becomes something compelling to buy from.
Exactly. It's really powerful. And I tell people you have to have a saga. It's, the anthology. It's not just one story, because you think about a business, if you're going to have a brand, there's that beginning story of why you started it, but it's not this where it ends at like, I started it because I needed money, the end. Well, no. You go into it and then like, that was the first week, like, oh my gosh, you should have seen this person that came in the door. We thought, wow, this person's going to buy at the store, they bought a lollipop. So, there's always more to it.
Absolutely, because we're not creating in a vacuum. Right? It's not this sterile experience. We've all got families and friends and all these other environmental factors that are going into our experience. And it was shocking. Funnily enough, I was working with my business partner. I was guest experting in one of her programs. And she had a client who had said that she was camping outside and they were in an air mattress, and all of a sudden the air mattress deflated. It got a hole in it and it was collapsing, and her husband ended up in the middle of the mattress and they had a hard time getting out. And I started laughing, and then we started hearing, "Oh my God, me too," from multiple people in the program. And I was like, what? Like, this is a thing that happens to people. And so what an amazing moment that you would think is totally mundane, like, yeah, maybe a laugh around a campfire kind of moment, but actually resonated with other people that then turned into relationships because they had that, I always call it the OMG Me Too moment.
Right.
It's a way to bond. And even if someone hasn't had the same experience, when you are emotionally connected to what you're sharing, it becomes a way for you to bond with other people because they understand you in a much greater sense and in an emotional sense as well.
Exactly. And that's so important you say that, because we have to learn to be vulnerable and also be able to laugh at ourselves, because you think about it. Do you share a story of there you are and it starts deflating, because that sounds to be really pleasant, and then on top of it, like, oh no, we're stuck in the mattress and we can't get up.
Absolutely. Well, it's so funny. You have to dare to be foolish in order to really open yourself to people, because what happens is we have this image of ourselves in our heads and we want to uphold that image. It's like this pedestal kind of thing.
Right.
And the issue with that is when you keep yourself on a pedestal, you become this talking expert head that no one can reach and no one can touch and no one can really relate to. But when you're willing to share your embarrassing moments, when you're willing to say, this is me, and, you know, it's okay that I awkward dance, and it's okay that I mess up my words, and it's okay that, you know, I did this super embarrassing thing that I never want anyone to know about, and I'm going to get red while I talk to you about it, because you're going to see that I'm human, and you're also going to see that I am strong enough to own up to who I am, which then gives your people the strength and the courage to own up to who they are and who they want to be, because that's what it's about. It's about that transformation piece. So if you can talk about your past in an empowered way that is really clear and says, this is me, and opens you up to your people and says, look at who I've become from this place that I was.
Right.
They resonate so deeply with that.
Exactly. And that's what we have to do when pitching those stories. It's just being authentic at a deeper level, because so many people, they want to keep it at the surface. Like, oh, well, I don't want to embarrass myself. Like, if you look at comedians as an example, they tell all sorts of stuff and like, oh, that's pretty vulnerable.
Yes. And it's funny. I tell a lot of my clients, go take an improv class. An acting improv class. Nothing's going to make you feel sillier and more embarrassed quicker than an improv class.
Right.
And it's really about shaking off this idea that you have to be a certain somebody, right? And act in a certain way, and really be silly and let yourself hang out as you and be free. Because when you can get in that moment, you realize not only is it way more fun, because you realize no one's judging you, they're just hanging out, which is really fun. And you're so much more responsive and attentive to the people you're sharing that moment with, that it accelerates the experience and makes it more powerful. And bringing that not only to your PR where you're getting more stories, you're in the, the room in the moment with the reporter and actually connecting to the audience watching you, but you are then also doing that with your clients when you take them in the back end once they've decided to work with you. So it touches every piece of your business.
It does indeed. And that's what we just have to do more and more of, is putting ourselves out there, because I think that's where businesses and entrepreneurs struggle, is that they have this mindset, well, I have a Facebook page, I have a sign, and people should be buying from me. Like, yeah, but who knows about you?
Yes, and here's the thing. It's really not fun to buy from someone that you think is boring, right? And here's the biggest thing that makes someone boring. If you think you're boring, your people are going to think you're boring, right?
Yeah.
That's just how it goes, because you're going to be all buttoned up and you're not going to be loose and free and you. And that's really what business is all about. I think that as business owners and entrepreneurs, it can be very easy for us to get lost in us and what we look like, how we're presenting, and be very us focused, where really the entire reason we exist is to serve other people, to solve their problems, to help them through their life. And so if we allow ourselves to be free of that expectation of perfection and really dive into the service aspect, then not only do we take off a ton of pressure, right? We actually allow ourselves to show up and be real, be authentic. And I don't mean authentic as in, yeah, I'm going to swear 15 times and I'm authentic. I mean authentically you and your personality, where you are making connections that matter quickly. And
exactly,
that's the power of all of this.
Right. We have to do that, because that's what's so important. It's putting ourselves out there and showing up authentically so people begin to know, like, and trust us. Because if we don't do that, I hope someone loves to eat ramen.
Absolutely. Well, it's the same thing. I say this all the time, and I'm actually planning a live stream rant on this. A loving rant. I don't do angry rants. Angry rants
good.
aren't my thing. But one thing that's really important is, I spoke with you about target market research, and it's one of the most ignored pieces of business. And you need it for PR. You need it to make sales. You need it to connect with your people and to be in the long-term game, right? So yes, anyone can show up and make a few sales for a couple of years, but it's not going to last in the long term if you don't really know your people, because eventually they catch on and you run out. But the thing with target market research is it is this amazing conversation that you have with your people that is all about how to serve them the best. What are they ready to buy now? What is it that they genuinely need from you, that they know that they need? What are the words that they use to communicate that? And then the cool thing on top of that is not only are you able to show up in your business with your services and communicate with them effectively, but now you've leveraged what stories do you need to share with the press because their audience needs it now. And that's one of the biggest things. In order to get press, you have to be relevant now. It can't be relevant in 3 months. It can't be relevant, in 2 years ago. It has to be relevant now. So when you're connecting with your people very clearly in a non-blocked way, right? So we're not building walls. We're tearing those down. We're being really vulnerable. But I don't want vulnerability to have this idea of it's not strong, because the whole idea is you show up confident, courageous, and you're probably scared as shit, and that's okay. But it's really about standing strong in that space to have these honest conversations so you can show up powerfully. And that is also the same stuff that gets you that press that you're looking for.
Indeed it does. And that's what we have to be doing. It's finding out what is going on right now. I think it's something that people don't take the time to do, because they're like, well, I know them, but do you really?
Yes. And it's so interesting because I was thinking about this morning. there are so many times that we think we fail, that really we didn't fail. We were on our path to success, and there was something along the way that we needed. And when you get lost in the cycle of I'm a failure, then all you do is give up on yourself over and over and over again, and you create that pattern. Whereas if you can fail, quote unquote, fail, which I like to say as making a mistake along the way, and redirect that and be adaptable and use that moving forward, I guarantee that you've got a press-worthy story in there that was needed to help your people in the long run. And as long as you can focus on it as not a failure, but a moment in your journey that's going to inspire your people, then you can move forward much faster and actually solve your problems versus getting stuck in them.
Exactly. There's no reason to be stuck in a problem at all these days because there's so many resources out there.
Absolutely.
So, it sounds like for businesses, what's really critical, they need to get their message out there. What's the easiest way for somebody to start getting press and media for their business? Because they're probably thinking, well, I can't just show up at the news station and say, hi, I'm here. I have this amazing story. Please put me on air.
That's awesome. So first thing is you want to look at getting the places where your people are genuinely hanging out. And I don't mean that as, they're on Facebook or Twitter. Of course they're on social media. But when you're looking at press, you really want to look at what are some great niche places that are in your field. So for example, I have a client who is a health coach. I'm not necessarily going to take her to Forbes, right? There's a bunch of podcasts. She was brand new when she came to me, and so she really needed to build up her press to get higher level things. Our ultimate goal for her is places like Self Magazine and places like that to get her own column. But you can't just walk in one day and say, hey, Self Magazine, I want this. Right? They're just not going to take you seriously. So what you do is you start with niche publications and niche podcasts or even television shows that are totally in alignment with where your audience is hanging out, and you start showing up for those. When you build that way, press always gets more press. That's just the way it is. You do one interview, you're going to get another. And it builds like that. And you want to maintain those connections because those connections are what's going to build your network. And it's also just nice to have those relationships, in my opinion. I just like to.
Right.
But it's also, you never know who knows other people. So, for example, I have this other client he's so cool. And he's really young. And a lot of times you can see where there's like this thing of people being young in business, and there's this stigma about it. And I thought it was so cool that he was young in business. And we ended up getting him into Forbes, and it was really interesting because then I find out after that he had a lot of connections with people who were 30 under 30 at Forbes. And that was really powerful. And even though we didn't leverage them for his PR, had I known that before, we could have.
Right.
And got him in there much quicker. So it's important to look at your network and really see, who do you have? And make sure that you are relationship centric first before asking for favors. The last thing that you want to do is, show up and say, hey, I really want you to write this article about me, right? No. You have to think of other people first. It's just like building a relationship or going on a date. When you see someone cute that you really want to take out, you walk over and you give them a compliment and you start talking, right? And then you ask them out. It's the same thing with publicity because these are people who are constantly being pitched. They're constantly hearing stories. And so you need to stand out. And these are people that they're behind the scenes people. So their entire career is about being behind the scenes and supporting other people. Do you know how underappreciated they are on a daily basis? So
I'm guessing a lot.
a lot. So many of them will never even like see their name in a way that they help other people get their name out. And so there's this moment that when you genuinely appreciate them, you give them a real compliment based on their work, on what they've done, that they sit there and they go, wow, someone sees me. That's awesome. And it opens up the conversation because now they feel appreciated, which makes them open to hearing you, right? And
Right.
the whole thing with this is it has to be genuine, okay? And here's the thing about press. You can't go into press for vanity, which I know it might take
Right.
some mindset work.
Yeah.
But vanity press does not equal sales. And that's really huge. So you can actually start with lower level press and make way more sales than getting a Forbes article right off the bat.
Right. Okay. So looking from that perspective then, of a lot of people would say like, let's say they've been written about like in the Huffington Post by a contributor there. How can someone leverage that type of content to get into other publications?
So there's a few ways. First thing is, if you have a website, you do not have to have a website, but if you do, what you can do is create a media page and start tracking all of your media with links to all the media. Not just, you never want to have just the logo, because anyone can throw a logo up. You want to actually show them the actual interview or article that was written. And then from there, whenever you're sending a pitch out, you want to mention like where you've been featured, but you want to wait. You want to have an initial contact, and then you want to pitch. You don't want to pitch on the initial contact for most publications. That's most of them. Not all of them, but most. So it's a good rule of thumb. And then when you're sharing about yourself, put it in your bio where you've been featured. So if you got into the HuffPost, which getting into HuffPost today is very different than it was 2 years ago.
Right.
Right? So today it's actually much more difficult getting into HuffPost than it was 2 years ago. So getting that is actually a really good way to leverage. Then of course you want to share organically on your social media. But the other thing that I really like to do, I do this for my higher level private clients where I'm doing publicity for them. We will actually run campaigns. We'll create an ad campaign for that person, leveraging, if they've done video interviews, we'll leverage that. Like we'll create an actual video for them that runs on that ad, or it will run to the article. And we will actually target contributors and journalists, and that will get more press in. So that's something that you can do independently in your own business for yourself, or work with a PR strategist for that. And that also works for one thing that I like to do is I like to monetize PR. I think it's really important. So we'll run targeted traffic to the features that people will get, and then use that as a leverage point for actually obtaining the placement, because we can say not only have we been featured here, right, and they can go see that, but we have this much in ad spend for the next X amount of months that we're going to send targeted traffic to this piece in particular if you choose to go forward with it.
Nice.
And then it creates a really good win-win, because then not only are you guaranteeing targeted traffic that you want to engage with to that platform, you're enhancing that platform, so you're creating a really great relationship that is going to lead to other things. And then you're also verifying with those new people, especially if you're sending cold traffic, you are verifying with them, yes, I'm trustworthy because look at where I am, right? And
Right.
they can see that's awesome. And then most of those places will actually allow you to hook up a funnel to your piece. So versus sending people to a website, don't send people to your website. It's just so easy for them to get confused. There's so many things to click. They get lost, and then that doesn't actually translate into people on your email list or in your community. So you
Right.
want to hook it up to an opt-in of some kind. And then that just served you up tons of traffic. So those are some of my favorite ways to really leverage PR that you've gotten before to get future PR.
Oh, that's excellent. And it's just a great way to do it that anybody can do. It doesn't take a lot of, know how to realize that, oh, you need to funnel it. Well, you should have one in the first place if you're promoting yourself online. And
Yes.
then to be able to run ads, do you have to know a little bit? Sure, but it's not impossible.
It's not impossible. And it's something that if you're not good at, you can hire out.
Right, exactly.
So it's a really great way to get out there, and PR is really good to use in your email sequences anyway.
Right. Now, how would you use it in an email sequence in that instance?
Oh, not a problem. So one thing that's really good, if you have, let's say, I'll give you two examples. Let's say you have a specific program that you are running. This can be a one-to-one program, a group program, doesn't matter. Some sort of service, can be a product as well. Then what you want to do after someone signs up, this can be anywhere in the first 3 emails, but it needs to be in the first 3. What you want to do is send them an email of value that connects to press that you've gotten. And you usually want this to be the best press piece that you've gotten. So this is where vanity metrics will actually serve you. So for example, if you've been on Forbes, or if you've been on Business Weekly or Business Insider or someone like that, then those are the places you want to put in that email sequence, because it's instant trust, right?
Right.
Same thing with if you've gotten, let's say you were on the Today Show or you were on Good Morning America, put that video in there. Absolutely put that video in there, because what you're doing is in that first 3 pieces, you're reducing resistance to objections, and you're showing them, you're not telling them, you're showing them why you're trustworthy. And that is so huge, because in order for people to trust you, they have to feel like you're honest and that you're forthcoming. And the best way to do that is with the PR that you've gotten, especially high-level PR. So that's how you would use it in that scenario. Now, if you do not have something to sell yet, still do this. And again,
Right.
you want it to be in that first 3. One, people will open up usually the first 2 to 3 emails. So that's number 1. Number 2 is, if you're going to sell them, preempt it with this as much as you can, because again, reduces resistance to the no. And then if you have extra pieces, follow up. But what it does is, if you don't have something to sell, it says, oh, this person will have something to sell, and this is definitely who I want to buy this from, because they know their stuff. And so that's the mindset that you get your people in. So that's how you would use it in an email sequence.
Oh, that's excellent. It's really important to do that, because you have to position yourself. As so many people, they don't take the time to show their expertise and let people know this is what you get when you work with me. It's like, oh my gosh, it makes sense. Because
Absolutely.
in those few moments of interaction, you have to demonstrate how confident you are in your abilities. Because so many people, what happens is they lack that confidence, and people don't buy from those that are not confident in themselves.
Mm-hmm. It's really not about the offer. It's really about your confidence about the offer.
Right, exactly. Because I've seen people that they could have the most amazing thing, and their reaction is, "Would you like to buy this?" I'm like, "No," and it's I'm thinking, "Oh, did I just push them off a cliff?" Because that was like harsh, but whatever. And but it helps them in some ways. But it's like, well, why not? Like, you don't believe in what you're selling. Why would I buy it?
Mm-hmm. If you are second guessing yourself, it's going to be really hard for your people to buy from you.
Right.
You have to be so solid on what you offer. So, for example, when someone asks me what I charge for publicity, I show up really strong, even though I'm one of the nicest people you'll ever meet and Southern as hell. So, I talk in like sugar, honey, sweetie, like that's just me.
Right.
However, I do not doubt anything when it comes to my ability to get people high-level PR, and I don't doubt my ability to pull out their stories and really provide an excellent venue for them to connect. So I do not blink twice at my prices, and I wouldn't expect anyone else to either. So when you have that kind of confidence, then it allows people to trust that they're getting the actual value out of what it is that you're selling. Because if you show up a little bit shaky about your prices, people are going to wonder, is it really that valuable?
Right. Exactly. And that's so important that you get that information out there, because when you don't have it in place, people are not going to want to work with you, because they want to know that, oh, you truly believe in what you're selling. So yes. And the other aspect that people have to be comfortable with is that you're going to have some people that will say yes, but you're also going to get a lot more people that say no, and that's okay.
You're not going to be right for everybody, and that's awesome. You don't want to be right for everybody. Can you imagine having to serve like 7 billion people on the planet? That would be insane. So you want to make sure that you feel good about what you're offering and that you feel confident in it, because all of the no's, what you're essentially doing is refining who you're attracting to get the yes, and the right yes, the yes that you are so excited to go work with, that you cannot wait until their call, or that, in my case, oh my gosh, their story.
Right.
Right? When I am so passionate about my people's stories, I can't wait to go to work for them because I got so many ideas. And that's really where the power of connection comes in. So in order to get that connection, you have to be confident.
Right, exactly. It's everything. So now tell me, what do you think about sites like Hero for people getting media attention?
I'm actually not familiar with that site, but totally tell me about it and I'll tell you how I feel.
Oh, all right. It's, the help a reporter out, where, you get all the different reporters that are putting in pitches like, hey, I need a source on blank.
Right. Yes. Okay. So sites like that are totally fine. I have no beef with them. Here's the thing, that you have to decide where your strengths are, right? Because in business, one of the things that holds people back for a very long time is trying to do everything. So if you're great at this, by all means, run with it, do it. Awesome. But one thing that you don't want to do is, because when it comes to PR, again, there's going to be more no's than yeses. That's just part of the game, so it's kind of like when you do 100 sales calls, there's a specific conversion number. Same thing with PR and pitching. So definitely reaching out to a site like that, who you can maybe even set up an automatic notification for when someone's looking for someone like you. That's awesome. But one of the things that I think is really important is being proactive and having a plan in place. You don't want to go after PR from kind of a guerrilla in the moment standpoint. It's okay to have those, by all means. So for example, for different clients, I have different Google alerts that let me know when something's going on in the press with certain keywords. And one of my clients is an OCD advocate. So I have Google alerts set for anytime OCD or anxiety is mentioned in the media, because when a celebrity is going through one of those moments, I can then leverage that to get him on the news as an expert to talk about it from a specific perspective. So
now that's interesting.
Things like that are totally awesome, but they need to be within the framework of a larger plan that's very clear, very dedicated, so that you can actually achieve PR results versus kind of being on the fly about it.
Now, that is important. So in this process of things, if you're using Google Alerts, because I think it's a really powerful thing people underutilize, how would you go about, let's say, leveraging that to get press? Like, oh, so-and-so celebrity had blank. What do? Then you can start making pitches to media stations saying, hey, so-and-so did this, and I'm an expert on blank. I can talk about this for a piece.
Yes. So same thing. You want to do your homework on whoever you're pitching beforehand. So If it's, let's say it's a reporter, watch a segment, make sure that it's the right reporter for you, because the worst thing you can do is like reach out to someone who it does a health segment and try and pitch them a sports story, right? Like that's not going to work. Or same thing, pitching a sports reporter a feel-good story about overcoming. That's it just doesn't fit. So you have to do your homework. You have to be diligent. It's just like walking into any meeting or any sales call. If you don't do your due diligence, you're going to shoot yourself in the foot. So just for everyone's knowledge, please don't do that.
Right.
And then what you want to do from there, again, compliment their work. Let them know that you actually watched it or read it, right? Because so often they're just getting pitch on pitch on pitch. So actually acknowledge who they are and what they've done and why it impacted you, how it impacted you. And then from there, talk about, hey, this thing happened, right? Position your story first, right? So you are complimenting them, then you're positioning your story. So this thing happened in the media with this celebrity or this study or this thing. It seems like something that would really be up your alley based on the things that I watched or read, and list those out, right? Don't be general about it, be specific. And then go into your story, why it's a good fit, and just some bullet points on it, like really short. You don't want this to be super long, because super long pitches just get thrown right out the door because there's so many to get to, right? It's not that they don't care, it's that they don't have time. So you have to be concise and powerful and respectful, and that's really the flow of it. So that's how you would do that. And I would actually, especially if it's like a timing thing, so let's say a celebrity had a breakdown or ended up in rehab or something like that, or just some sort of story there. It could even be a relationship thing for relationship experts.
Right.
You want to reach out, and you want to reach out to local media first, right? Because local news has a much harder time filling their spaces than national news does. And local news will lead to national news if it is deemed trustworthy enough. So starting local is actually really powerful, because then you've been on NBC News. Right? And that can lead to being on a morning show or being on national news. So you really want to leverage local first and build from there. And you want to make sure that you're positioning why they need you now. So for right now, everyone's going back to school, right? So if you are a parenting coach, for example, a really great thing to do would be getting on the news about how to take your kids to college, how to deal with empty nest syndrome, how to help your younger kids deal with your older children going to college, especially if they're still young. There's a lot of families nowadays who their kids are going off to college and they still have a kid in kindergarten. Right? So meeting people in that space where they are, sometimes it's not always going to be a direct connect to your business, but it's definitely a connection with who you are, what you do, your expertise, and really showing up as a leader in that space that you can leverage.
And that's important, because I think people don't think about that process. And by the sounds of it, it's using your local media is substantially easier than anything else, because they're just more on they just have more time to fill.
They do. And the thing is it's kind of like a gateway, right? If you can get the respect of your local press and build those relationships, it is so much easier to get more press. So it's definitely the place to start. And you want to think about it like how you start a business. You start with a niche and you grow, right? You don't necessarily stick with that one niche for the entirety of your business and only that niche, right? You usually expand into other niches as well. But you want to start in that like center where people are ready for you, they're ready for you now, and being able to communicate that. So for example, the piece that I mentioned for a parenting coach would not work in October. Right? They're on to something new. You would have to do it now. And just in case people are hearing this on the replay, it's August, and this is when people are going to college. They're going back to school. How do you really manage that? So it's a story for now, not a story for later.
Exactly. And that's what it always comes down to, is that we have to think about when things are relevant and then run with it, because there's so many possibilities out there. But we just have to work on just getting ourselves out there more, because the more people that know about us, the better.
Absolutely. And don't be afraid to share stories that are a little scary for you. Being uncomfortable is a beautiful growth mechanism for business, because people really connect with that energy of, you know what, I'm afraid, but I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to share the story anyway. I'm going to show up anyway. That is the characteristic that inspires people to follow leaders, because they're willing to show up and they're willing to do it anyway, even if they're terrified. So it's one of those things that PR is something you can do from the very beginning of your business. It's how I started my very first online business. I didn't start with a service and getting a website up and all that. I actually started by writing articles for press. And that's how I developed my business. And it was a very powerful way, because I was cemented as a leader in a couple months, because I focused on press first. So it's not something you have to wait to do. That's a really common misconception. And it's not something that you have to have connections with to actually leverage. The only thing that you need are people and relationship skills and a press-worthy story. And those are things that anyone has the ability to do.
Right, exactly. We all have that ability. So as we're winding up things, what's one thing you recommend for people to do if they're truly wanting to leverage the media to get their message out there?
One thing that I would recommend is really sit down and write out all of your micro stories. Micro stories are shorter stories focused on experiences with particular lessons attached to them. So one might be, I was thinking about a hater story, because a lot of our people are afraid of putting themselves out there because of haters. It was something that came back in the target market research. And so I was thinking, how do you handle a hater? Well, one of the things for me for business that I was really nervous about was that people who had abused me in the past would find me and create chaos, for me and my business. And it was something that actually terrified me. And one of my exes actually had stalked me for a very long time. And so that was a valid fear that I had to overcome to go to the next level in my business. And so I was able to then take that story and leverage it for my people to show them this is a real world situation, versus someone who's saying something mean to you that you don't know on the internet. Is it hurtful? Yeah, absolutely. But there's a way to manage it and a way to handle it. Just like there's a way to handle it in real life. And if it's going to happen in real life anyway, if somewhere along the line someone's going to be mean to you anyway, you might as well handle it on your terms. So all of that to say, writing out those micro stories for where your people feel stuck, where they're afraid, where they really want to go. If you have all those written out, you can leverage those into press-worthy stories, because the power is in the specificity. The more general and broad you go, the more boring it is and no one wants to read it. But when you have very specific experiences, events, situations, and conversations in your life, those are powerful stories, because they hit people where they need it to be inspired to go to that next level. So that's really what it's about.
Oh, that is awesome. So as we wrap up now, actually, really wrap up this time, how can people learn more about you and reach out to because if they want to learn about your services with PR and marketing?
Absolutely. I would say everyone should go to m4businessmastery.com/the new business model. And there, what you'll find is a masterclass where my business partner and I really explain the new business model that's working for online entrepreneurs right now that focuses on making cash first and actually getting PR to leverage scaling your business so that you can do it faster and with much more ease than the old way of doing online business.
Oh, that's excellent. Well, once again, I want to thank you for coming on to the podcast today and sharing your wealth of wisdom about PR, marketing, and just plain out having a little bit of fun.
Thank you so much. It was an honor to be here.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thanks for listening to the Big Movement Podcast today. And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Now that you've surely been inspired to take your entrepreneurial career and business to the next level, you can stop by the website and get more. And if you're ready to boost your business brand, be sure to grab your free report, 7 Easy Steps to Build Your Brand Today.